That's no moon. It's a space station.
Hey guys, welcome back to the show. So this is kind of an impromptu interview with Ben Gordon, who some of you may remember from 2022. We had him on the show during COVID whenever he was hospitalized for COVID that he didn't have, and they tried to kill him in the hospital in a nutshell, and he had to escape. And that story is incredible, but so much more has come to the surface since then. Ben has actually been staying with me temporarily, and we've been talking about this, and I've been learning some more stuff about him. So I was like, we just need to record an episode and just give everybody an update, maybe retell the beginning part of the story, because it's fascinating and it's actually mind blowing the more you think about it, and what was actually happening on the planet at that time. So we don't really have anything planned besides we're just gonna kind of bullshit and tell some stories, and I hope you guys enjoy. Welcome to the show and welcome back, Ben.
Thanks very much. Yeah, so I was in a minor car accident. I had lost consciousness somehow. I now believe I was drugged at a restaurant prior to the accident. I was able to view the footage from the CCT at the restaurant with the owner, and I was totally normal on camera. I went to the bathroom, came back, and I put my face in my hands and darted out the door. And I remember now that I felt drugged. There's no other way to describe it.
So basically, just to recap, you went back to the restaurant where you were prior to the car accident.
Correct.
And you asked them to see the CCT footage.
Yep.
Or TV footage. And so you watched yourself go into the bathroom, and then when you come out, you noticed something was
Yeah, I watched myself engaging with a couple other people sitting at the bar, and I remember what we were talking about. Some guy to my left had made an offhanded comment about Aaron Rodgers not taking the vaccine, and I'm from Green Bay, so I kind of stood up for Aaron Rodgers, but it was friendly, and yeah, so I watched myself being normal and animated in the way that I always am. Nothing weird with my gait, walking in, everything was totally normal. I did go to the bathroom, and when I came back, I took a sip of my drink, and I don't know if something happened at that point while I was in the bathroom, but the feeling I had in that restaurant was a combination of panic, a sort of vertigo, and just this feeling like I'm in trouble. Like I'm in trouble now.
right.
And because I lived about a half a mile away from this place, I was like, just go home, get the fuck out of here.
And just for those who don't know your story, where was this location?
It was in Rimrock, Arizona, just like 20 minutes south of Sedona.
Okay. So then afterwards, you leave the restaurant, you get into your car, and you get in a car wreck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the next thing that I was aware of was just coming to in my car, which was sitting on the right side of the highway. And the windshield it was like cracked, but just that gelatin kind of look to it. And I just did sort of a inventory of my arms and legs, and everything worked. I didn't know what was up or how this had happened. Two women approached, and they were kind of on their phones, and they were calling me, and I was like, nah, don't. And they're like, we already called. And within moments, an entire team descended on my vehicle. And I was like, all right, what's this all about? And after a couple quick exchanges with the EMT that was in my window, he said, I'm going to calm you down, boss, and put a needle forcibly into my shoulder.
So, and just to preface this, you did not have COVID. You were not sick.
Oh,
prior
no,
to
no,
this,
no,
right?
no.
Okay, so you get in a car accident, and the EMTs show up, and the first thing they do is jab you with a needle, and you black out.
Yeah, of course.
And at this point, did you remember them prying you out of the car, or does
No.
that part comes later? That you realized that they pried you out of the car.
Well, I had to piece all this back
Right.
sequentially, because from the moment that I was injected, it was black.
Okay. So then what happens next?
The very, very next memory or sensation that I had was coming to in a ball of light, of energy, and just a surge of energy. And I didn't know where I was. But I knew that I was hooked up to things, and I felt the intubation tube, and I pulled that out of my mouth and then turned my head to see that it was indeed connected to a ventilator. There was an IV in this hand. I yanked that, and then a catheter. And I was in a ton of pain because I just injured my parts, And I grabbed the hospital sheet, covered myself, and found the doorknob. It was dimly lit at best. And that's when I had the standoff with three nurse doctor type women who were huddled around a desk to my left in the hallway.
So you ripped the catheter out, you ripped the tube out, everything, the IV, just out of pure what instinct? So like what happened when you first woke up? You just knew to rip him out? You just felt something was wrong?
Well, what am I doing there?
Right.
It's just anything connected to my body that makes no sense is going to, I don't know. I was just like no to all of this stuff. There were no like regular thoughts, I guess. It was all one action. The whole thing was like, get out of here. But I was coursing with energy, which when I ended up getting through many steps and attempts, got the hospital report, the amount of drugs they gave me should have killed me a couple times over.
What drugs were they giving you?
Propofol, fentanyl, and then I always forget the name, but there was a big controversy around during COVID with this benzo drug that they were giving old people in the UK. And they use it for end of life, but it's the most powerful benzodiazepine on the planet. And for some reason that was given to me. And you're really not even supposed to give that and opiates at the same time, but they did.
Wow. Okay, so you ripped everything off, you were bleeding, you covered yourself with the bed sheet, went out, opened the door into the hallway.
And I said, what the F am I doing on a ventilator? And the way these women looked at me it wasn't like, oh my God, he got up. It was like, he's supposed to be dead. They looked at each other like this, like. Right. And when I got no response, I said it louder. What the F am I doing on a ventilater? To which there's a very snotty doctor woman that said, you have COVID. And I said, no, I don't. Does it look like I need a ventilator? What are you talking about? What the hell is going on? By this point, they had moved towards me and security were kind of hovering around. And I never turned my back to them, but we had the standoff and I said, what drugs did you give me? And they didn't name the benzo. I got that from the EMT report, which would come later. But she said propofol, fentanyl. And then I said, oh, you gave me the drug that Michael Jackson died from.
Right.
And she's like, you have COVID and all this stuff. And I was like, no, I don't. Like, what are you doing? Like, can I go? And at that point, I requested an adult diaper because I was bleeding all over the place and clothes. And there was a little bit more of a standoff there, but I was able to leave.
So you also tell us about your wristband.
Oh, when I followed the intubation tube back to the ventilator machine itself, there were LEDs and stuff like that. And I noticed the wristband because I didn't know where I was. I had no idea. And there was enough light to make out that it said I was born in 1922 and was 100 years old. So I thought I was in an organ harvesting type of situation. So I did bring that up to them in that standoff too. And they said, we don't know who you are. And the other thing, so I was like, how do you know? What are you talking about? They're like, you were in a car accident. You flipped your car. You rolled it. I was like, what? And a social worker came up during the standoff and goes, "We found your sister's number. Do you want to talk to her?" And I go, "How do you know who my sister is if you don't know who I am?" And then everyone just like, ugh.
Like busted. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, "I'm leaving now." And it wasn't the case whereby they're like, "Okay, here's your wheelchair. We're wheeling you to the lobby. Fill out a release form. Is there anyone you can call? You can use our phone." They literally took me to a back door and with the two security. And I go, "Where am I?" And they're like, "You're at Flagstaff Memorial," which is an hour and a half away from where this accident happened. They airlifted me. So I said, "How do I get downtown?" And one of them just pointed, "Just walk straight." So that's what I did.
And they just let you walk out the hospital and they gave you clothes to wear? Yeah.
I had like a tie-dyed hoodie that was too small, sneakers that were too small, pajama bottoms, an adult diaper, and that's it. And it was 30 degrees in Flagstaff.
Wow. And they just let you walk out the door
Yeah.
bleeding through your clothes and you just start walking. And so I'm trying to remember, just to rewind, just
Yeah,
to
yeah.
recap. We're not forgetting anything that happened actually in the hospital. So they didn't put up a fight when you tried to leave.
No, I would learn later when I got the official hospital report that calls were made to security to not let me leave. But at no point were those security people super aggressive with me.
Right.
They were too, I could have easily whipped either one of them or possibly both of them. They weren't very big dudes.
Now, the part of the hospital you were in, did it seem like some secluded wing of the hospital in the basement, or
I ended up Google mapping where it was because I knew that it was only one street that I walked a mile down to get to downtown Flagstaff. And I was able to get right there in the street and I found the door, which was unmarked, but it was technically part of an ICU, but it was the very last room in that ICU. It was the end of that rear part of the hospital.
right?
And the room was simply too big. I mean, you would think during that time in COVID that space and resources are kind of scarce. And, you know, they tend to pile people close together and things like that. But it was larger than this room.
Wow.
So I was in one corner with the machines and it was empty space in the rest of it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So you start walking after they let you go, which amazingly does not happen in a standard situation. What happens next?
So I make the walk and I finally get to where there's some signs of life. It's a Sunday night, so a lot of the businesses are not open. And then I finally run into an individual who looked cool, looked like a hippie, and he was like smoking a cigarette. And I tried telling him the story, and he's listening intensely. And then at one point, he just goes, "I can't, dude." And I go, "Fair enough." So then I see a place that's open and it has beautiful like floor to like ceiling windows, and I look and I'm like, "Oh man, this is fancy." I go, "What am I going to do?" Right? Like bartender had a tie and stuff. And I walked in fast to get a bar seat to hide the fact that I was bleeding through a diaper and pajamas. And the bartender immediately goes, "Dude, what happened to you?" And I showed him the wristband first, and he's like, "What?" And I started telling him all the drugging and stuff. And I tried to order a beer, and he goes, "Dude, I'm not giving you a beer." After what? And I go, "Oh, yeah, yeah, totally." So I'm kind of telling a small crowd, just a couple people on my left. And there was one individual to my right and the bartender, just the thing. And they're just looking at each other like, "What the?" And the young man to my right kind of hopped over to my bar stool next to me. And he was like, um, "I don't know why, but I believe you." And he goes, "Do you want to use my phone?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." And I remembered a friend's number and I gave him a call and he didn't answer. It would have been an Arizona number and he was
Right.
in Wisconsin. So the young man just said he was going to get me an Uber. And I was like, "No, dude, that's going to cost way too much." And he's like, "Well, too late. I already called it."
Right.
And at that time, I did get his name and was able to pay him back. But he walked me out and he tipped the cab guy in cash. And then I took the hour and a half ride home.
Wow. So then you started doing some digging. You tried to call the hospital, get your records.
Well, not right away. So it's kind of funny. Like I told my roommate, who was super cool dude that got it. We lived together because of his views on a lot of spirituality and like the COVID stuff. So I went through the whole thing with him. He said, dude, in no uncertain terms, this was a hit. I had a bad feeling yesterday or earlier today about you for some weird reason. He goes, none of this adds up. He was freaked out about the wristband. And basically we made like a couple day action plan for like, I got to go back and get recover what I can from the vehicle. I got to get the hospital records, blah, blah, blah. So the next day we went to go I called the tow place and to me, I was just going to get it towed back and I'll replace some glass and that's good.
Right.
I was just, the car was on all four wheels. It was still facing the right direction, but it was off the road just a little bit. And I called and the tow company owner kind of laughed and he goes, you think you're going to tow that? I go, yeah, why not? And he goes, come and look at it. He goes, you can if you want. And so me and this friend went to the tow place, walked through this gigantic lot, and we approached the vehicle. And I mean, I'm looking in this, they had told me that the car flipped, right? And there were scratches all over the car. But I wasn't seeing denting. You know, for a car to flip and come back all the way on its four wheels, it has to impact on every side.
Right.
No exceptions, unless it hit an incline.
Right. Yeah.
And there were no inclines in that area. So what I did see was the windshield and the very top where the windshield meets. It looked like somebody had dropped something over an overpass or something. That's what it.
Right.
But I don't know. Like I'm just like, whatever, let's get what I can. First thing I noticed was my coat with my wallet and my ID. And I'm like, how did they not know who I am? This makes no sense. Not only that, I found somebody else's driver's license placed right by the gas pedal. Like it was at the same angle, like to be found. And it was somebody else. It was a valid license from North Carolina, a male about my size, a little bit younger.
Yeah. And in a normal situation, they would have taken your coat with your wallet and ID to the hospital with you.
Of course.
Right. And then your family would have been notified and they would have been there or whatever the case may have been.
So I find this thing and I'm like, all right, this is weirder than I thought. And I march around to where the tow company owner and my roommate are. And I go, look at that. And my roommate goes, what the fuck? And the tow guy goes, yeah, all kinds of stuff will fly out of your car in the nooks and crannies when you flip it. And I was like, really? Like what? And I go, they airlifted me, dude. Like they airlifted me. I'm uninjured. He goes, yeah, they do that to everybody. Just be happy that you didn't get taken to Verde Valley Hospital. They'll kill you.
Really?
And I just looked at my roommate. I was
like you're in some like bad horror film or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you also said it looked like they used the jaws of life to pry.
No, I found out later that they were talking to my family a little bit. Like the social worker did reach my family and said that I was combative at the scene. And for my protection, that they would have to like subdue me or something like that.
And they said you were drunk too, right?
Yeah,
they told your family you were drunk.
They told my family that I was drunk. And the only thing I can think of, I think the whole thing was a frame up to keep me in the hospital. The only thing that an EMT maybe would have seen was that there's no recycling or garbage. And I was tasked to bring in all of the recycling and there were beer cans in there. So if stuff got kind of thrown about, it could have smelled like that.
Right.
And I did have 2 beers, but no, that's like,
right. You weren't drunk.
That wasn't it. No.
But on the hospital record that you eventually got, it just said COVID-19. It didn't say anything.
When it said problem list, it said COVID-19 and listed nothing else.
Wow.
So,
so real quick.
Yeah.
So you when you went back to the tow yard to get your vehicle, you noticed that it looked like they pried you out of the driver.
The door was gone.
The door was gone, but the rest of the doors were unlocked and working. So they could have just got you out of the car.
They could have removed me. They could have removed me in any other fashion. They may have had to like put down one of those things so I wouldn't like touch glass, because my window was smashed. But it was the fanfare surrounding them arriving at my vehicle was so over the top and weird. And it's like 15 people descended on my vehicle. And the reason I was combative was I was like, I would learn this later when I got the EMT report. Why are you taking my door off? This is ridiculous.
Right.
And because it was. And, but that apparently gave them license to inject me with something.
Right. Any rise they can get out of you is enough, like just
Not only that, and I don't remember this to this day, but the EMT report says that it doesn't mention being injected because that's completely illegal, but it says I'm arguing with them, but then suddenly I became compliant and I walked over to a gurney of my own volition and laid down.
That's what the report says.
Yeah.
But you don't remember doing that.
But then it says, no, of course not. So I willfully, whatever drug they gave me made me be like, okay, guys. Because when I'm sitting in that car and those ladies are calling, I'm like, oh no, COVID protocol, COVID. Like, you are not going to the hospital. You're good. You got a couple scratches. You're good. So the idea that I would suddenly change into a compliant person, like willfully laying on a gurney, they drugged me. So what their report says is, oh, he became compliant and seemed to want to talk to the cops more, because by then the cops had showed up and I'm trying to appeal to them, like, don't let me go with these people. And I laid on the gurney, and then they took me into the ambulance to just do, because they can take peeks at your body and stuff and like kind of release you, and or at least take x-rays and stuff like that. But they said they couldn't advance an IV in the left hand. I don't have veins. It's weird, but I don't. Like, it's super hard to.
Right.
So they moved to the right, and I became agitated. So for my safety, they intubated and sedated me.
And didn't you say it might have been ketamine? Well,
Given what people have told me, I'm unfamiliar with the effects of it. But yeah, I think you become, I don't know. Have you ever taken ketamine?
No, yeah.
That's what other EMT people told me. That's the only thing those guys would have on them.
So you called the hospital back, and what happened?
Well, first of all, so then the day after getting, signing over and grabbing my multivitamins and stuff that I could from the van, I literally had to look up on my computer, can you make a video on a MacBook? Like, I just didn't even know.
Right.
I made the 2-minute and 30-second video or whatever, because I needed help. I needed somebody that's why I even know you, is that I made this video.
Right.
A person with absolutely no web presence, no followers on Twitter, whatever. And for whatever reason, that thing
went viral.
It went very viral. And by then, within those first couple of days, I was already talking to doctors. I was already talking to Andrew Kaufman. I was already doing Zoom calls with JFK or RFK Jr.'s like people, and many, many other like health freedom people. And Andrew Kaufman told me exactly what to ask for, to send it certified, to get the report. Let's see what they're saying about what happened. So I sent that off and I waited 2 weeks and I heard nothing. So I called the records department and I said, yeah, I'm still waiting. Where's my release? And the woman on the other end said, we still don't know who you are.
Really?
To which point I said, yeah, that's weird, because I sent a photocopy of my passport and I filled out the entire release form, which has my birthday, my social security number. It has everything. And she's like, we need your driver's license. We need a signature that matches your release form thing. And I'm like, okay, fine. So I did that. And then when I received the medical report, I mean, I talked to you before I even got that first one.
Right.
I talked to everyone. I did all the interviews in the span of 2 weeks, and then I just shut it down. I was like, no, I'm not doing this anymore. But anyway, I got it. And there was no mention of a respiratory therapist. The entire time, my family was like, oh, Ben, you weren't on a ventilator. You silly goose. You were probably just drunk, saying that kind of stuff. I'm like, no, I really was. So the drugs were listed, but none of the amounts in the drugs. It said COVID-19 again. It had a whole bunch of other stuff that they just do if they check you out. But in one in one radiologist thing, it said it made reference to the intubation tube. So I had proof that they tore out the whole part about respiratory therapists.
And so and some of these doctors that you were talking to, did you show them that report, and what was their response to it?
I still have a text from Andrew Kaufman saying this is utter garbage. This is not real. This is like a complete fake. Where is this? Where is that? You need to get a lawyer and stuff like that. So at that point, Todd Callender, who's huge in the health freedom movement and doing all kinds of great stuff, reached out and said, I can help you pro bono up to a point. I'm not an Arizona attorney. If you want to pursue it further, eventually you'll have to get an Arizona attorney. But he sent an amazing letter to the hospital threatening them. He asked for I found out on my own that hospital has cameras in every room. We wanted every minute of me being there, every drug and the amount. We wanted the respiratory therapist information. And so that one actually came real fast. That second one, it went from 16 pages to 83 pages. And the respiratory therapist information was pencil. That's not how anyone does anything in a hospital anymore.
Right.
They also used a program by a company called Epic, which nobody really knew. All this research was done by myself. So Epic is used for all kinds of scheduling and things like that in hospitals. But additionally, Epic has been, as a program, has turned into a diagnosis program, an AI diagnosis program. It will actually tell the staff what to do. And it's all a program. When members of Congress pointed out that this is really dangerous, how do we know that this program is not just recommending thousands of dollars more than what's needed? They were kind of shut down. And so no one's examined this program, how it works and stuff like that. But the point is here that I have a false hospital record that they sent to me as the real one to begin with. And then I got a much closer to real one.
And okay, so you weren't able to sue because of a law that's been passed. If you're not allowed to pursue any legal action if you were labeled with COVID-19, correct?
Yeah, every state in the union passed via the governors enact that gave hospitals blanket immunity during COVID-19 as a matter of good faith. So because my hospital report just says COVID-19 and that I allegedly tested positive for COVID, there's nothing that a person could do. I mean, maybe there's an end around for that, but I learned pretty fast and got warnings from the psychic and spiritual community to, in no uncertain terms, do not pursue that avenue.
Right. Okay, that brings me to the next part of the story where I believe you went to some meetup group and there was some psychic women there.
Yeah. A lady who had rented me a room in a house a couple years earlier in Sedona saw the video and reached out and said, dude, where are you? And I was like, no, I live in Rimrock and I'm trapped here. I have no car. And she's like, well, we do this potluck every Sunday. I'll pick you up. And you got to get out of the house. And I was like, yeah, of course. So I showed up and it was in West Sedona, really nice house. And I walked in and I was the only male. and it was all, for the most part, women my age or older. And I was kind of making myself comfortable, and I could hear a lot of them like kind of pointing me out, and they had seen me interviewed somewhere on one or the other shows. So we actually went around the room and people said, "Hey, I'm Ben, blah blah blah." And so Astara, who had picked me up to go to this, had me tell sort of what happened. My face was still, like you could tell something happened. So gave a little spiel. And then throughout the course of the evening, several women, and this was like the upper echelon of like lifer Sedona psychic people. And I don't remember the names of where they work or anything, but two women initially called me aside. The first one pulled me outside and goes, "Dude, I can see," like she's a remote viewer. She goes, "That was not an accident. That was definitely a hit." And I said, "Why? Like, why would, like, I don't really do anything." And she said, "No, it's not about what you're doing. It's what you are." And then when I pressed her about that, she made a comment about doing a lot of spiritual work in other realms,
Right.
stuff like that, which actually made a lot of sense to me. I was like, oh, that's why I wake up tired and have action dreams all night, whatever. So I went inside. I'm like, that's interesting. And about 20 minutes later, another one who didn't even know the girl that pulled me aside said the same thing, that it was a hit. And then I was a little more open to her because I had heard it once before. And then she kind of went off about how she could just see my energy. And she's like, of course they would want to hit you.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some sort of threat to whatever is happening right now, the unseen world, the phantom world,
Right.
And I mean, it makes perfect sense to me, especially when you tell the story about the car and, they said it rolled, but you said it looked like it was impacted by something.
That's my best guess. And then I didn't even know, I accepted at face value when the guy at the tow lot I said, why do you think it flipped? He said, "Oh, the scratches." And I was like, "Oh yeah, where would all these scratches come from?" But I didn't know until much later that there's something called road rash. And the vegetation if I went off the road and went through there's these low trees that are really hard,
Right.
and branchy. Even if I went like 20 or 30 feet through that, all those scratches would have happened.
Right.
So I don't know what happened to that car.
It almost feels to me like it was hit with some sort of ultrasonic weapon, like which is okay. So this is interesting. Now we're gonna really get woo here.
Yeah.
This takes us to the show, The Periphery, Peripheral. I'm sorry, The Peripheral, where that exact type of weapon is used in that movie to take out a vehicle, or in that show to take out a vehicle. But maybe explain to the audience the whole scenario of how that even happened.
Yeah. So maybe 4 months prior from me even moving to Arizona where this occurred in the first place, I was living outside of Asheville, North Carolina, in a town called Marshall. And the buzz around town was that Amazon was scouting out this town to like film a new thing. And it was the same people that did Westworld. So of course it's this little town. Everyone's like, "Ooh." And I was like, well, if they're coming to town, I'll audition or sign up or whatever, or do headshots and stuff to be an extra in this thing. Cause it honestly was like, if you can't beat them, join them. Like it completely took over the town.
Right, right.
So I sent in some stuff and then I got a letter back saying, "You're perfect for the part. Like you'll be an extra, blah, blah, blah." And I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." So really what it entailed was mostly sitting around getting $12 an hour to eat catered food and occasionally being called out to do this or that.
Right.
Like every other day, or they'd be like, "Hey, you go walk over there," whatever it was. And so they had asked on our application, like, what vehicle you own. And I put what I own in the year and stuff. And they had said, "We'd like you to be a vehicle participant." And I thought it meant, oh, I get to drive around in a scene, but it didn't mean that. It just meant that I had to bring it to the site of filming every day and leave it, and they'll let me know if they need it. And it was $20 extra in a day, whatever. Yeah, sure. So I would drive that block and a half or 2 blocks and park it. One afternoon, they grabbed me. The main character, what's her name? Chloe, the actress Chloe.
Right. Yeah.
She has a brother in the series, and it was a scene with just the two of them in front of this business. And they came and grabbed me and they go, that's your car, right? And I was like, yeah. They go, pull it right into that first spot in front of the post office. And so I did. I backed out, walked back out of the shot and kind of watched some film, and it was super cool. And I wondered, like, kind of looks like my Jeep is going to be in that scene. Well, whatever, cool. And so all this stuff in Arizona happens, the most insane thing that's ever happened to me in my life. And then sometime later, the Peripheral is airing. So I'm like, oh, cool. I'll check the show to see if I'm in it, see if the show's good. Went through it. And yeah, in that scene that I saw them shooting, my Jeep that was involved in this accident was framed right between the main character and her brother. And even it doesn't make any sense to what was happening with their conversation. They kept looking right at the Jeep and back at each other. And I was like, what the hell? And I can't remember if it was a few scenes later or the next episode, but they show an officer get hit in a Jeep with a direct energy weapon.
Right. Right.
So the filming of the Peripheral happened before my accident. And there I was watching my vehicle in this super soldier show.
Right.
Getting hit by a directed energy weapon.
Right. And no, I don't believe in coincidences. And for those who don't know what the show premise is, it's about a gamer who is approached by an agency, for lack of a better term, to test out a new VR technology. But the technology is actually so sophisticated that it takes your consciousness and travels it into the future into a clone body. And they actually use that clone body to, like, as an assassin or as like type of a Manchurian candidate, but in a different timeline in the future. Very, very reminiscent of a secret space program type of stuff.
100%.
So they put the headset on, and it actually transfers the consciousness to the clone body, which, I mean, it's a pretty incredible premise, I think, and there's a lot of disclosure in that show. But I just had no idea. Whenever you told me that that vehicle was an extra in the show, and then
last Thanksgiving I came through St. Louis and ended up meeting up with Tyler, and I like brought my Chromebook in to show him that. I was like, dude, I was in that Peripheral show which you had seen.
Yeah.
So there's like pre-scripting of this accident in a major,
right.
And I had, it's not as like big of a deal, but it is to me. Had written a song that appeared on my album prior to this. I wrote a song called All the Sage Is Gone. And the spirit of that song was that something was kind of coming for me. And the second verse of the song, the lyrics are, ever get the feeling that you're squealing down a dirty, dusty road? The lights get near in the mirror, push the gas to the floor. You get away for a day, think you're safe, but you were wrong. Shadows marching in, all the sage is gone.
Wow.
So it's about a car wreck.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So you were also targeted, you believe, on 2 separate occasions, your vehicle anyway.
Yeah. Well, at the time that these events, one happened right prior to me moving to Arizona from North Carolina. What had happened was, I took off from my parking lot to go to the grocery store, and my wheel was like, I was like, oh, power steering fluid must be out. And it's extremely difficult to drive a car, but I was able to get it to this place called Ponders Auto, which is a family-run business. They've been there for generations. They're totally cool. I pull it in, and he's like, I can get to it later today. I'm like, cool, man. So he calls me, he goes, you might want to walk down here. And I walked over there and he goes, you got any enemies? And I go, I don't think so. Why do you ask? He's like, no, like ex-girlfriends or, and I was like, what happened? He goes, you see, on these Jeeps here to get, there's a bolt sitting right on your engine block. There's this piece. And he goes, there's a special tool you need for that. And it was removed and it was placed on top of your engine block like you were meant to see it. And I was like, really? Like you can, he goes, how would it get from down here to right here? So,
Right.
and I was
Wow.
like, oh, okay. He goes, no charge. You're good. I just put it back. And then 3 days later, same deal with my steering. And I brought it back. I was like, dude, I don't know. And he calls me again. He goes, you might want to get down here. And him and his son come out and there is a puncture hole in the
Line,
yeah.
the power steering line.
Yep. And he goes, you ain't telling me that you don't have some enemy out there, young man. So I even went to the police and unfortunately where my Jeep was parked in the lot, it was just out of view of the nearest camera. But that was this, so that was the second time an auto mechanic said my car was messed with. So in 2016, I had made my first decision to move to North Carolina and I never made it. And that's because even though I had gotten my brakes checked out and a full tune up and a sign off from my personal auto mechanic, I was driving through Indianapolis, which began to have, so I'm on my way to Asheville. Out of nowhere, this ice storm hits and it's like whiteout conditions. I'm like, just great, right? Like, of course. And I go to put on my brakes and it goes all the way to the floor, no resistance. I'm talking no brakes, nothing. So I wait for an off ramp and time it right. And I get off. And the very first thing I see is a car X to my left. And I was like, cool. So I pull in and I, kind of play with the gas, get it up towards the brick building. And I'm like, all right. And I walked to a hotel nearby, called them the next morning. They were super backed up. He's like, I can't get to it till Friday. And I was like, oh, okay. So I'm at this hotel and he calls me on Friday and he goes, every single one of your brake lines is cut. And I go, I thought there was only one brake line. He goes, no, there's like 4.
Right. Yeah.
He goes, it looks like somebody used a laser.
Wow.
So, and that event at some point around that time was when I started to think that there was something different with me.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which, I mean, I just, spending some time with you and hearing these stories and among many other stories, I would agree. I think that, anybody that's actually targeted like that, on some level, they're a threat. It doesn't matter if it's in this reality or another timeline, another realm, or whatever, the unseen world. I believe that they can identify us, and they know, and they'll target if necessary. And if they think that you're going to do something that would destroy or foil their plans,
Well, that it caused me to rewind and really take a look at. I'm an artist, I suppose. I'm a songwriter, and I'm prolific. Like they just come out, but I don't really pay super particular attention to what I'm writing about. It's just kind of like, oh, it's a poem, whatever.
Right.
But I started going back over all of my stuff, and if there's like direct references to SSP type stuff, all throughout,
right,
and from well before I'd ever even heard that term.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then it causes you to go back to childhood and all these other things, and it really it put me in a position where I absolutely had to start asking tons of questions, which is that period after that car incident, the very first time a mechanic said in no uncertain terms, somebody did something to your car. It forced me to really look back. And that's when I started asking a lot of questions of my family about like early life and.
Right. Yeah. Speaking of your family, this is going to shift gears a little bit, but it also might be related. Your aunt,
my aunt,
Your aunt had a daughter, had a child, right?
Well, my aunt had twins,
Okay.
and then she had one other child. She had one child, then twins, and then she had a stillborn.
A stillborn. Okay, so tell us about this stillborn and the doctor involved.
Yeah, the way this came up for me. So after this, after my brake lines being cut, I started really piecing things together and asking questions. And I had been having nightmares about a doctor that I saw when I was a kid. And there was just this terror associated with this doctor. And the only conscious memory I had was of my mother repeatedly taking me to this man, me being mortified and crying, and my mother having an almost zoned out expression as if she was like under mind control.
Right.
And I knew the name of the doctor, but that's about it. So I gave my mom a call and I said, Mom, what do you know about Dr. Pierre Slidham? And there was like a pause and she goes, why are you asking me this question? I said, I got a weird feeling. I'm having dreams. There's something feels wrong, Mom, and she's like, well, your father and I were friends with him for a time. And we thought he was cool at first because he had some very unique ideas about health and different approaches. And they seemed a little bit more homeopathic, but he got really weird. And I go, explain, what do you mean weird? And she goes, I don't know. His ideas just got weirder and weirder, and we began to feel very uncomfortable around him. But she couldn't remember specifics. So I was like, that's all you got? She goes, call your Aunt Julie. And I was like, oh, okay. And my Aunt Julie just happens to be my favorite aunt, an aunt who would go to UFO meetups when we in the 90s. Like she's the cool aunt. So I call her up and I say, I swear, like I say the name Dr. Pierre Slidham, and she goes, I hate that man. And I said, do tell. And she goes, he is one of the worst human beings I've ever encountered in my entire life. And I go, well, tell me what happened to you. And she said, well, when I was carrying the stillborn, she was still using that term at this point in the conversation. She said that he was so crazy insistent that he have that baby at his personal residence. And I go, well, come on, man. It was the 70s. That home birth stuff was like, she goes, no, it wasn't that. He was like his references to my baby made me feel like he thought it was his. It was creepy. Like, no, we're having this baby at my house. And the more insistent and sort of violent in his approach he became, the more turned off she became, right? So she dropped him entirely. And she let the maternity people know at the hospital where she had birthed her other kids, like, in no uncertain terms, that guy is to be nowhere near my delivery room when this happens.
Right.
So, she allegedly was informed that the baby wasn't going to make it or it was already stillborn. And back then, apparently, they'd let you just carry that around. But she felt that it was still alive. She would feel something in her stomach. And they had some excuse. Like, she's like, no, this thing's alive. What are you talking about? And they were like, oh, sometimes like electricity can kind of cause like a feeling in your stomach that feels like it's a baby doing that. And so it gets to be the time where, I think she's scheduled to have an abortion. They were saying this child was dead. And she had already like made her connections with the doctors that were to be there. So she goes in and she's about to give birth. And it's the team of doctors that she had signed off on. And all of a sudden, this Dr. Pierre Slidham walks in and orders everybody else out of the room. And she's drugged up and she's like pleading. And he's like, no, this is it. I'm the one. And so these are her words. She said, Ben, the baby wasn't human. And I said, what do you mean it wasn't human? Like, we all know that you had a deformed child and it was a stillborn. And she goes, no, you don't understand. Like, it looked like an alien. And I go, like, which type of alien? Like what?
Right.
She goes, well, it had an enormous head. It had 6 fingers on both hands and 6 toes on both feet, and it had no eyes. And I go, what do you, no eyes? Like sockets? She goes, no, like membranes. There was there was an extra layer of skin over this baby's enormous, in her words, eyes.
Right.
And I go, well, I think it is an alien. She goes, I think it was an alien too. And I go, because like the Greys allegedly have this film.
Right. The member.
That
Yeah.
they don't even actually have black eyes.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And she goes, oh, that's right. I go, what happened next? And she said that they didn't give her any time to grieve with the child, to say goodbye. And I was like, was it breathing? And she's like, I don't think so. They took it right away. She's left in this empty room. She's bawling her eyes out, and no one comes in to say anything. And finally, she has to pee, and she walked by Dr. Slidham coming past her, and he says, pretty weird that your baby had no eyes, huh?
Wow.
And it's like something out of a horror movie, right? So she tells me this, and I immediately like, what can I find about this dude? And I dug as hard as I could. There's not that much, but what I did find was pretty telling. And that is that his medical license got, it was suspended in the 90s. And in the state of Wisconsin, what you have to do if your license is suspended is you have to do a 1-year residency with a doctor who you trained with when you were in medical school.
Right.
So he went back to Madison. What he was supposed to do is go back to Madison, Wisconsin and spend a year so that he could get his license back. Well, he doesn't do that. He skips that. And instead, he is sent to the Persian Gulf right at the start of the first Iraq War. And
As a doctor.
As a doctor. So this document that I found, the spirit of it was this. It was members of the Wisconsin Medical Board going, no one else has ever not just lost their license entirely for not complying. Why is he getting special treatment? And there's language in there. So it's like this back and forth that higher ups, people above their pay grade, told them that he was going to be losing his license. Not only that, he was to be used for whatever he was used for. And
right. Yeah.
So his story got weirder for me. And I was like,
yeah, whatever his special nick or ability was. Yeah.
Well, and that's, this is where the first Gulf War syndrome comes up.
Right.
They were doing a lot of experimentation on the troops then.
Yeah, whatever his area of expertise. That's what I was trying to say. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, they utilize people for what their skill set,
Right. So to folks out there that might see this, like a little bit of extra context, my father and his brother, the other 2 siblings of this aunt that gave birth to this strange creature child, my dad and his brother have conscious memories of being abducted by aliens when they were kids in the 50s.
Wow.
So there's a lot going on in that family.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. And you're in the process of writing a book right now where you tell this and like so many more things that, you've told me in passing, but, you've written extensively about them. And when do you expect that to come out?
I mean, if I decided it could be done tomorrow with what I've already written, but I'm going to keep going and probably within 4 months, I would think.
Okay.
But yeah, I realized after the dust settled by a good number of years, because I decided to drop I wasn't really going to be public about the COVID hospital thing. I felt in danger. I didn't feel like pursuing money. I didn't really like the attention too much. 2 weeks of it was good for me. I was like, all right, that's good. That's a wrap, folks. But my entire life is full of incredible stories. So I just started writing and it flowed right away. And I'm like, this is a great exercise. And the working title of it is I Keep Not Dying, which is actually a song of mine, which talks about all the times I almost died. And if I had included every time I almost died, the song would be like 35 minutes long.
Wow. I like the title though. It's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't wait for that. And Just one last thing, one last conversation here. I'd like to have the Trump assassination attempt, and we can get into, was it staged, was it an inside job, all the details, all the theories going around. But I don't want to get into that. I want to get into what we talked about the other day, is the fact that it felt like some sort of a timeline shift. And I had said this to you and you agreed. And then that day, the universe kind of brought us a few other examples in my eyes that proved that something like that did occur. So, what are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts on that began as a feeling that was incredibly familiar to me. But after, of course, tuning in and going, what the hell? What's this? What's that? I felt an enormous burden I didn't realize was there kind of lifted. Like everything felt cleaner. There were more open paths to everything. And I'm like, when did I feel this last? And it was when Trump got elected. And it wasn't because I was like out there campaigning for him in 2016. He made me laugh. He made me laugh in the debates, and I decided to vote for him because I'm like, this is better than anything we've ever had. He's making me laugh,
Right. Yeah.
which is huge. But I'm not political in a big way or anything like that. But I had this overwhelming sense going forward that things were going to be okay now when he was there.
Right.
And that lasted all the way until the COVID stuff happened.
Right.
So it is my belief now that the dust has settled from what happened the other day, that I believe that there was a real attempt on his life. And I believe that him being there for whatever reason is a better timeline for us, for sure.
Yeah. Something shifted. And I said it to you just based on a feeling I had too. I was like,
Yeah.
I wonder if we shifted timelines. And actually, what gave me that idea, now that I'm thinking about it, is there's that Simpsons episode that shows Trump in the coffin as if he died. But then I was reading more about it. And so that's like pictures from an episode that never released. No one can find it in the archives. It's not in the history. So there's a theory that this is that episode occurred on another timeline. And then since we aren't not on that timeline, or we shifted timelines, that's why we can't actually physically watch that episode. And in this timeline, somehow the missing was the moment of the merge or the shift, whatever. And so that's what got me thinking, and that's why I brought it up to you. So then we get online. Ben Chastain from Edge of Wonder, he was live from the conference in St. Pete Beach, and he was talking about he was meditating at the time the assassination attempt occurred. He had no idea that it occurred until he was like out of meditation, or however it happened for him. But the feeling he got was that same thing. He said there was some sort of he called it a timeline convergence, is what he called it. And he said that he predicts that there's gonna be sort of a Mandela effect surrounding this event. He goes, maybe not right away, but the further away we get from the event horizon, people are gonna start remembering details differently. And it's gonna cause a debate because people are gonna be remembering things from two different timelines, essentially, just like the Mandela effects.
Yep.
And then you showed me that video of that guy who he said it was, how did he word it?
I know. I was just trying to think of it was the best way to word it, I think.
Right. We can find out really quick. It might be on the tip of my tongue.
Oh, I texted it to you.
Yeah, I know. So anyway, share your thoughts on that a little more while I look this up.
Well, it seemed that once I became aware of this new feeling of just everything opening up, that's the best way I can describe it. It felt, when things feel good for me, I feel like there's nothing to stop the distance that my thoughts can travel. And I feel like there's an interplay between myself and the rest of all of the cosmos. Like things are flowing freely. And that's the feeling I had the day after. I felt like something went back to the positive timeline.
Right.
And it was just based on a feeling.
Right. So I'm going to have to play exactly what he says here. We're not going to be able to hear it, but I don't know how far into the video was it.
I think it's like
people seeing it, sir, messed up the timeline. They definitely did. Richard Simmons been on a lot, yeah.
That's a little bit after that.
So basically, the title is "We Skipped Timelines," but also this is entertainment. He says.
I think it's about a minute ahead.
We're accidentally doing is we are the tip of the spear. So we're reaching a pinnacle of technological innovation. We got some things.
Sorry, guys, we have to figure this out.
That's it.
That's it. He said it was a course correction. And we shifted timelines and it was course corrected. The timeline was course corrected. And he, in his opinion, we're on the positive timeline now.
And just I don't know if you saw this today, but just to show you how much prior knowledge there was potentially for this event attempt on Trump. Same deal as 9/11. Massive put options put on Truth Social in the days in the week prior.
Right. Yeah. And it tanked, and then right afterwards it went up. And there
does seem to be some kind of divine providence surrounding this timeline.
You know, it's interesting too. I just watched the movie The Shooter, where they plan. You watch the scene with me. They plan an assassination attempt on the president in Pennsylvania.
Yep.
And they miss. The shot misses.
Mm-hmm.
And they do it that way because so they can frame this guy, whatever. It's all a major inside job set up by the 3-letter agencies and agencies without any labels in the movie, according to the movie.
Yeah.
People we just don't know exist. So, what's funny is that was actually the very last clip that I put on TikTok, and then they banned my account.
Oh,
it wasn't the Trump thing. I thought it was that, and then they perma-banned my account. But the only reason I wanted to bring it up is because I don't see that many people talking about that aspect of the assassination.
Yeah, and I woke up this morning thinking that all others who see this that felt a similar thing, and even if you didn't, if there's ever been a time to put as much love towards this beautiful timeline, it's now. Because I feel like there's an opening here, for sure.
Yeah, I love that, actually. I agree. And another friend of mine who's a channel, she got a message after the assassination attempt occurred from a group that she connects with, and they told her that you're safe now, that she was safe. And she was confused because she didn't know she was in any danger, as if there was some major battle happening that we were all unaware of.
Mm-hmm.
And like that point, like maybe some angel really did like come and cause Trump to turn his head, and like just by the nick of, just the nick of time, and nicked him. And we're on a different.
But that's kind of like what I, said to you yesterday. There's a large evangelical presence around Trump, which turns many people off, and I totally get it. But there's a lot of sincere Christians around him as well. And it boggles people's minds. Like, how can this kind of like just crass, unclean adulterer have all this around him? And I thought, because he's actually human.
Right.
Look at our other options. Look at these bloodline, reptilian, potentially like hybrid families. They're not even human. What's an angel going to do? You know what I mean?
Right.
He's human.
Right.
That's it. It's not that he's the savior.
Right.
It's that he's human and influenceable.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And we've had a long list of presidents who have been either reptilian or reptilian consciousness working through them. The Bushes, the Obama, Clinton, at least them guys for sure.
For sure.
And obviously Hillary. But I think, we're talking about non-human interference in the U.S. government for decades now, and Trump is the human. But he comes back in, and he's a human that's protected and backed. And I know a lot of people listening right now are getting extremely triggered. We get hate mail still when we say anything remotely good about Trump. Even people who are, hardcore fans of ours. I really don't care what you think or what you say about that. This is just an opinion. It's a feeling. We could be completely wrong, but
yeah. And like I said, like I'm not really I talk about politics in the manner by which I observe it. And all I'm trying to do is keep my life as nice as possible. I only care what the people around me at large, what kind of people I'm around. And politicians, unfortunately, influence the way people act. So I'm looking for nice people. And I think there's jerks on both sides. I don't know how to describe it. I'm not a Trump person. I don't have a MAGA hat. I don't really vote typically. But I cannot otherwise explain why I feel like everything got better when he was elected in 2016. And it took a massive psyop and intervention to make that stop, COVID-19.
Right. And let's hope they don't do that again, because surely they're going to want to, take away the momentum, right?
Oh, they're absolutely going to try.
Yeah. Right. Well, is there anything else that you'd like to cover before we wrap this up?
No, I think we covered it.
Yeah, I think so. Well, thanks for coming back. And guys, if you haven't seen the very first episode with him, you might want to watch it just because see how far we've come. And I don't know off the top of my head what episode number it was. One something, I think. We're in the 300s now, but
oh wow.
Yeah, it was in 2022. So it was a couple of years ago, but yeah, go check that out. I'll put the link in the description.
Oh, and if you want to check out my music, you can. bengordonshow.bandcamp.com.
bengordonshow.bandcamp.com.
Yeah.
Okay. You can give me that link too.
Okay.
And thanks again for doing it. It was a lot of fun. We love you guys. Until next time, have a great evening. Good night.
It was further agreed that the alien nation and the United States would exchange 16 personnel each to the other with the purpose of learning each of the other. The alien guests would remain on Earth and the human guests would travel to the alien point of origin for a specified period of time, then return.
Well, what shocked me was how they selected the astronauts. But they went out and found people within the military that were orphans and didn't have any family members and weren't married. Now, that's a difficult task, even in 1960.
But this became quite a mainstay in early ufology of the 1990s, given that in addition to Request Anonymous telling this extraordinary story, there were several alleged DIA or Defense Intelligence Agency officials who were also coming in and saying, yeah, we have knowledge of this case too, and we can verify what Request Anonymous is talking about.
Could you estimate what his level of intellect was?
Smarter than me. He was smarter than me by a long range.